So I think we should start.
All
right.
Okay. Hello guys. We were supposed to go live at about 12:30, and we had some delay because we were expecting Anupam Kumar, who is ex-senior vice president of HDFC Bank, to join us with his views about how relevant is MBA in today's market and how does he see the prospect for the next 3 to 5 years. But there's some technical glitch at his end. So what we will do is we will connect to Anupam separately and post his views on these questions about this subject a little later on our Facebook page as well as our website. So we will get started now. Good afternoon. My name is Sanjeev. I'm the founder of Eklavya Learning Resources. We have been running a few job-oriented courses from our institute. I am an alumnus of IIM Calcutta, and I have got a good amount of industry experience behind me. With me is Siddhant Shekhar. He is a relatively recent pass out from XLRI Jamshedpur. Hi Siddhant, you can say hello to the viewers.
Hi everyone.
Yeah. So in this session, we are going to talk about the strategies that can help you clear an exam like CAT or XAT, and how you can make it to one of the top institutes, which is the dream institute of most of the top MBA aspirants. We will then come to why we thought that we should come out with a course which is different from what you currently have in the market, and how it is going to help any of you who intends to get into one of the top MBA colleges. So to start with, Siddhant, I would like you to probably mention 3 top strategies that you think can help any CAT or probably any other MBA entrance exam that one is appearing for, if the focus is to get into one of the top 10 or 20 institutes. Top 3 strategies that you would recommend.
Right. So I'll speak from my experience. So I took the exam twice. I took it in 2016 while I was still in final year of my college, and then I took it again in 2017 after I had worked for about 8 or 10 months. So I have seen the preparation phase from both the sides. I've seen it as a college student, and I've seen it as someone who's working a full-time job. And there are a few things that starkly stood out to me in the way people approach preparation for exams like these. Firstly is, I know it's sounds like a cliche, but the idea of the can-do attitude. Because a lot of very smart and very bright people that I personally know from my time in college or from my time while I was working, they write themselves off from the exam thinking that it's too difficult and they can't crack. Which I think, it's a problem, because if you look at the syllabus and you look at the exam very, at a first principle basis, it's not asking something which is very technical or something very difficult. Most of the things that are being talked about, which are being asked about in the exam, are maths that you have done till about 10th, maybe 11th standard. It's English and, you command over it, and it's basic data interpretation and logical reasoning. So in terms of the skills that the CAT is trying to assess, it's not a very difficult exam. What makes it difficult is, the way it's structured and the fact that you have to manage your time and you're competing against other people and all of those things. But from a syllabus point of view, it's not a very difficult exam. The kind of things that they are asking in the exam are very basic and something that you would have probably done by the time you had crossed your 10th grade. So a lot of people sort of write themselves out of the race before they have even given it a proper shot, thinking that it's very difficult. However, I think that is a very fundamental mindset shift that one who's preparing for the CAT seriously needs to make. It's the fact that, no matter your academic pedigree, no matter what kind of marks you've scored in the past, no matter where you went to college, no matter what your performance was in college, no matter whether you're working right now, whether you're not working right now, everyone, in my view, has the ability to crack the CAT, provided the person puts in the hard work, provided the person has, guidance, and provided the person is ready to put in the sacrifice and, the hours of hard work that are needed. So that's the first thing I'd like to talk about this, the mental
Okay.
framework. Yeah.
Okay, so if I can just rephrase it probably in one sentence, what you are saying is get that belief. It's not an exam which is beyond you or beyond
Exactly.
anybody for that matter.
Exactly.
Some amount of planned hard work, if you are willing to put in, you can surely make it. Start with this belief.
Most definitely.
And Siddhant, I would in fact want to make it more specific in terms of the number of hours required to study for an exam or qualify in an exam like this. I would say that if you're an average student, average graduate, still you will not require probably more than 500 to 700 hours of dedicated study or preparation for an exam like that.
Correct.
You agree with this, or you think?
I agree. I completely agree. However, there's the caveat of these need to be 700 hours of dedicated and deep work.
Correct. Focused,
Exactly.
focused 700 hours. And we will come to that as to how you can prepare in a manner which will help you reach there rather than just do things that everybody else is doing and you think is the right thing to do, which may not be the case. So first thing, I think very, very important, mental aspect, believe that you can make it because you surely can. It's not going to test some very advanced skills or learning or something like that. Okay,
so that's
good.
The first thing.
Yeah.
Sort of leads me into my second point as well. That when you're preparing for an exam like this, it's very important in your preparation stage itself to have feedback coming in. Because, when I say 700 hours of work, I mean 700 hours of deep work where you are actively looking at your preparation process, where you are identifying your shortcomings, your weaknesses, the areas where you are faltering, and you work actively to solve those problems. That comes only when you are getting feedback during your preparation phase, and for which I think mock tests are the best way to go about it. So when I was preparing for my exams, I was working. So, I used to come back home after office at like 8, 9, maybe sometimes 10 o'clock at night. So after that, it's very difficult to, sit down for 4 hours and, focus on one particular topic or, go ahead and like solve a book of questions and things like that. So for me, mock tests became a shorthand for preparation because it helped me on two levels. A, it sort of calibrated my internal clock where I could tell anytime I was spending more than 2 minutes or more than 3 minutes on one particular question, I could tell that this question is taking way too long, I need to move to other questions. That is the sort of skill that you acquire only with practice. That's the first part. And secondly, when you are doing mock tests consistently, they highlight your problem areas. If you are doing 4 mock tests in, let's say, a week, you will very quickly identify that these are the types of questions where I'm faltering. These are the types of questions where I don't take much time. And identifying these patterns is very important. And this sort of also leads me to my third point. That
just let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
The second point for the understanding of everybody is that you are saying practice as much as you can and you need to. But at the same time, see what you are doing in terms of where you are going wrong, which are the areas you need to correct, how do you improve those areas, and then reattempt one more test. Don't keep taking tests one after another without really analyzing how you are moving or progressing. Great point. Yeah.
And this is also sort of leads into my third point as well, that self-awareness is very important if you are preparing for an exam. Be it CAT or be it any other exam, doesn't only have just necessarily to be CAT. Because when you are aware of your own weaknesses, you can calibrate your own practice schedules. So if, for example, when I was preparing, I needed help in the number systems area. But I was decent with algebra and geometry and all of those other arithmetic areas. So I knew that this was the area in which I needed help. So I focused a lot of my attention on that area because geometry and other things I could manage. But then that level of self-awareness comes with practice. And at the same time, you need to be honest with yourself. And we do, like, whenever we are preparing, it's like a common tendency that I see that when something gets too difficult, we're like, okay, fine, let's move on to something else, we'll return back. But it's important to be honest with yourself that this is an area where we need more help. And there's, it's absolutely fine. Not everyone is, born knowing everything. Obviously, it's a skill that you develop with time. So this sort of self-awareness where you can be honest with yourself, you can look at your test results, you can look at your mock test scores and say that, okay, fine, these are the areas where I need to work more on. And that goes the other way as well. There are also, it also helps you identify your strengths, where you can very quickly identify that, okay, this is a type of question I don't need much help on. which means that you can take that time, and the time you would have spent on preparing for that section, you can invest it somewhere else. So that, because your strengths are
Right.
already your strengths. That's what's making them your strengths. But, correct allocation of time when you're preparing, instead of doing like this carpet bombing when you're solving everything and you're going through all the modules, even when you don't need anything.
Hmm.
I think it's not a very productive way of preparation.
Okay. So third thing I think very important that you're saying is that anybody who is taking these tests has to be self-aware. When you take tests, the purpose of taking tests is to keep assessing where you stand, what are your strong areas, where you need more help. Strong areas will help you maximize your score as well as probably save time for the other areas where you are not that strong.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Uh, I would like to add a couple of points to this, Siddhant. No, you don't really need to know everything that is being asked. The CAT does not expect you to know a lot. As you said in the beginning, what it tests you on is probably maths and English of class 10 standard. That is all.
Yes.
It is probably the number of aspirants vis-a-vis the number of seats that makes it very difficult. Also the time constraint, because I think if anybody is given a 5 or 6 hours uh, time for this, most of the people will be able to answer a very good number of questions. So intelligent selection of questions, how much time you can spend on each, and that mental balance to understand and appreciate that every question is worth the same number of marks. You don't get extra marks for solving extra difficult questions. So these are things that you have to continuously work on, and self-assessment awareness is a very, very big tool to help you do that. I wanted to add a couple of more points. First is you would have heard this, that success of others is not your failure. But at the same time, I believe that success of others is not your success as well. When you see that probably XYZ person from ABC Institute has qualified in CAT, you probably get into that institute and start preparing the way, or you take tips from CAT toppers and then probably prepare in the manner that they prepared and got success. As Siddhant said, and I firmly believe that each one of you needs an individual study plan meant for you. Just try and understand it in a different way. If we are getting into a situation where we are unwell and our objective is to go to a hospital or a nursing home for the purpose of our well-being, we want to get well. So it's like everybody here wants to get into an IIM or XLRI or a FMS. That is the purpose. But then when I'm wanting to get well, probably my ailments are different from somebody else. I need a different course of treatment. You cannot or you will not want to go to a hospital which puts you on a uniform standard medication. You will not think that it is suiting you. And that is what largely happens. While preparing, people tend to do things that others have done. You have to understand what will work for you. For that, you need to understand your own strengths and weaknesses. You can take expert help in trying to find out your own strong or weak areas, and then accordingly have a study plan prepared which is suitable for you. When you take random tests, there's too much material available all around, and when you take random tests, some of these tests may be difficult considering your present level of preparation. Some of them could be easy. You have to take tests which are really matching with your level of preparedness, and as you keep progressing, you have to keep probably attempting tests which are tougher or probably closer to the actual CAT. Uniform tests for everybody will not work. So very important that you
discourages a lot of people. If I'm at a 2
correct
and I'm trying to solve a question paper set at a 7, it will discourage me and it will just tell me, you're not going to make it, so just give up, quit trying. Whereas if I'm at a 2 and I'm given a question paper of 3, it pushes me to, actually go ahead and,
absolutely
become better.
Absolutely. Yeah. So coming back to my point of, you don't need to really know everything, and you don't need to really answer everything in CAT.
Yeah.
So section wise, Siddhant, I think you have appeared for CAT, got calls from so many IIMs. Finally, you decided to go to XLRI. I have appeared. I have studied from IIM Calcutta. From our experience, we can say that probably the current pattern is such that you have 34 questions each in quant and verbal ability and RC, and 32 questions in DILR. Is it fair to say that considering the current level of competition, about 26, 27 questions solved correctly in VARC and quant would suffice for anybody to get a 99 percentile score?
Easily. I remember when I took the CAT, I think I had attempted 32 questions in verbal ability.
Okay.
And my final sectional score was, I think, 99.7 or something. 99.7
Okay.
in VARC. And that is
Okay.
attempting 32 questions. I'm sure I must have gotten some wrong. So 26.
So probably we can take 90% accuracy level.
Exactly. So even if it is 90% accuracy, it means that I did not get more than 27 or 28 questions correct. And that was enough to get me 99 percentile. You don't even need 99 percentile in sectionals to make it, make it to a good college.
Okay.
You need to clear that 90% cutoff, and it's more than enough for most interviews.
Correct. So you don't need to know everything, and you don't need to answer all the questions. Reasonably about 65 to 67% questions answered correctly should be good enough for you to get a 99 percentile or above score, which is more likely to get you a call from the top institutes.
Right.
Okay. Besides this, when we talk of CAT preparation, we always think of the competition being such that mostly the engineers or people who are very strong in quant are more likely to make it. This is not true. We said that we will probably discuss some strategies, but we will also bust some myths about CAT.
Right.
So Siddhant is not an engineer, is a physics graduate. I'm an economics graduate. So you don't really have a better chance of qualifying in CAT if you are an engineer and vice versa. Everybody has equal chance. If you are willing to try hard, work in a planned manner, you are as likely to get into one of the top colleges as is anybody else, irrespective of his or her.
And there's
background.
Also two other misconceptions that I'd like to talk about. First is, people who are in the so-called lower engineering colleges, they always think that, people from the better engineering college, they have a better shot at getting calls, they have a better shot at interviews. Again, not really true. Obviously, they are at an advantage because they are inherently, academically more qualified. They have been in a more competitive environment. So, that sort of frames your mental model in a way where you're more competitive, you're better taking exams. But then just because you're from a smaller college in a smaller city, it doesn't by default take away your chances of making it into an IIM. That's the first part. And the second part is a lot of colleges also themselves are taking steps actively to encourage non-engineers to apply. So most of the
that is in fact a recent very important point, because that's a recent development, I believe.
Yeah.
Where while selecting, they use algorithms where probably freshers, probably people from humanities background will get a call from the top institutes at a lower percentile score as compared to probably engineers or people with work experience, because they want to have the right kind of mix in the class, student mix in the class.
And it doesn't even just stop there. I mean, obviously it should not dissuade you from attempting for a 99 percentile, but at the same time, it also, just because there are people around you that you see who have scored a 99 percentile, it shouldn't discourage you by saying that, I'll never score a 99 percentile and therefore I'll never get into the college I want to go to. It doesn't work that way. It's a very simple thing that, as long as you're willing to put in the hard work, even if, your marks are slightly lower, the college will balance that out.
Yeah, the colleges also now want the right mix. They don't want 90% engineering graduates to sit in one class, because the right mix also is very important to have different perspectives or different views in the class.
And most of MBAs, the coursework is designed in such a way that most of it comes across from discussions. Even in class, your professor, the professor is not just delivering a lecture, the professor is facilitating a discussion amongst 40, 60, however many people are in your class. So therefore, if they're all engineers, we don't bring enough fresh perspectives to have a complete holistic understanding of a case.
Yeah. Yeah, but even if, as we were discussing, even if you are not an engineer and you're a fresher, probably going to become a graduate and you're taking CAT, 99 percentile is the minimum that you need to get into a good college. So 99 percentile, I hope most of you understand the concept of percentile. It is, if you are getting 99 percentile, it means that you are in the top 1% of people who have taken the exam with you. It doesn't mean that you have got a 99% score or something like that. Probably with a, as we were discussing, a 65 to 67% ratio of right answers, you will probably be in the top 1%. Okay. We were talking about a reasonable amount of time, and we discussed probably 500 to 700 hours of dedicated study. Planned hard work is very, very important. Siddhant, you spoke about the practice and you spoke about the mental aspects of it. Is there a role of intelligent guessing in these exams? What do you say?
Definitely, definitely. So there are always a few questions in the CAT that are impossible to solve within 2 minutes. Maybe they ask you to count the number of factors. Maybe it's, it's a question where you have to filter through, let's say, 8 possibilities before you can get to the correct answer. And that's impossible to solve within 2 minutes. In those questions, it's much easier to actually just reverse engineer your answer from the options. It's something that I have done. It's something that, it's a valid technique, because the inherent thing is that any competitive exam, especially the ones like CAT or, even your engineering or medical entrances, they're MCQs. And therefore, they're inherently different from the way exams are done at your school, at your college level. Because now you're not supposed to write down an answer, you're supposed to say what the correct answer is. And if these are your 4 options, it can only be one of these. And there is no extra nobility in, coming to the answer on your own. If you can eliminate the questions and get to the answer quicker, you're going to get exactly the same number of marks. So that is, I think, that elimination technique is also a fundamental tool that you have in your arsenal when you're trying to solve a question.
Correct. You have to use it as a strategy. You can't rule that out.
Exactly.
But you need to know how much risk you are taking. So I think it's important that you first go for the question that you are absolutely sure about, and then probably try and attempt some of the questions which you're not very sure about, but you are kind of having some idea about what possibly could be the way to solve it. And if you can just understand, if you can eliminate 1 or 2 options, your chances of getting the correct answer is that much higher. If you can eliminate probably 2 wrong options, then you have a 50% chance of getting it right. So vis-a-vis 3 marks for getting that right, you have 0.75 negative. So it's worth taking that chance, and you have to have that intelligent selection of questions that you would want to attempt, even if you are not very sure of the answer. So elimination as a strategy is a very, very important tool, which you must learn to master. You must learn to apply it to the right end of questions. It should not be that, the questions that you were actually in a position to solve correctly, you leave them for the end, and then because of lack of time, you are kind of guessing the answer for them because you didn't get the time to go through those questions.
And in an exam like CAT, one single question can make a lot of difference in a final percentile. Because as
yes. In fact, you have so many students who are at 100 percentile. Like so many people get exactly the same score.
Correct.
So at every percentile, you'll have that many students.
Exactly. And it's like, if there are 10, 12 people at 100 percentile, and that's, in a bell curve, that's the tail of the curve, which means there are already very few people. So if you are operating in that 90 to 95 or that, 95 to 99 percentile also, one question can, take you up or down by maybe as much as 5 or 7 percentile.
Correct. Okay. We can come to the concept that we have developed, Siddhant. uh, you have recently done, last year you passed out from XLRI. So probably, around 2018, I believe, one of my friend's son wanted to do MBA. And we were just discussing, probably I suggested that he should get a professional advice because these coaching institutes can help you a lot. And then he said, why don't you recommend something? So I thought, let me just go to some of these top notch institutes and try and see how things work out. So, and one question which always intrigued me, I don't know about you, was that what percentage of students which actually enroll in a particular coaching finally make it to one of the top MBA colleges? You always hear that they will advertise that this many of our students have made it to the IIMs, or this many calls our students have got. So when I went to these institutes, I interacted with them. I told them that we have one student who is keen to actually prepare with you guys. To my surprise, nobody asked me who the student was in terms of what is his background, what qualification he had, whether he was an engineering graduate or a commerce or an arts graduate, how much marks did he score in 12th and graduation. Nobody was even talking about who the student is, what does the student know, what does the student doesn't know. All that they had to say was, we have the best faculty, we have the best material, put your guy in the batch which is starting next week, and we will make sure that he or she qualifies. So that kind of gave me clue, and I discussed this with you, and we have been instrumental in designing this together. That gave me this clue that probably the reason that we have relatively less success ratio as compared to what we would want it to be, in terms of those who get into these MBA coaching institutes and those who finally make it to one of the top colleges, is because the most important ingredient or the variable in this whole exercise, which is the student, is missing from that picture. As I said, nobody asked me who the student is and what is his present level of preparedness or knowledge. So that kind of gave me this idea, and that triggered this thought that probably we need to design something where we start with the student. We need to know what the student already knows. What are his strong areas? What are his weak areas? Why does a student need to get into a course where half the things he already knows, and why does he really need to spend time and money on it? That is how we worked on this, and we came out with a modular plan where we assess the current level of preparedness or knowledge of students basis few tests that we have, and then we leave it to the student. We of course advise the student that based on the test results, these are your strong areas and these are your weak areas. You probably need help on these sections. You don't need a help on some other sections. So spend your time and energy and effort, and of course money also, more on these areas rather than spreading it thin and then doing things that everybody else is doing. So that is how this concept of this modular, unique, customized coaching for MBA came through. We have designed it where we put you through modules which you need to undergo. You spend time only on modules that you really need a help on, which helps you probably strengthen your already strong areas by ensuring that you don't lose a single point out there. Plus, you solve those areas or the problems in those areas in a relatively faster time, so that you save time for other areas where you are not very strong and probably you need more time to solve questions from those areas. And then the tests, that sectional test as well as mock that we design, are to match with your current level of preparedness. It's not a uniform no, curriculum or method which is delivered to everybody equally. Not everybody will go through the same sectional test. Not everybody will go through the same mock test. It will be designed specific to your requirements currently, considering current preparedness level that you are at. Uh, Siddhant, if you can just add more value to this in terms of how it's going to probably help and what we
Yes,
thought, and this
I
unique
think
modular methodology.
I think you've covered most of it. Most of it you've already covered. However, I would like to point out one thing that in a generic one-size-fits-all course, the problem becomes that it just ends up helping the people who don't need the help the most. If I am like an academically excellent student who has scored 90% throughout his or her career, and if I am given access to this expert advice that maybe is a 10 or 20% value addition to my preparation. However, the people who need it the most, they are the people who don't get access to this. You are in a class with 60, 80, 100 other people, and there's a set number of classes that are fixed, a set number of questions that will be solved for you on the blackboard, and it's difficult to ask for doubts from people like from your faculty in the middle of a class. You are supposed to follow what the rest of the class is doing without any attention to what actually you need. Maybe you needed 5 more questions to get that concept very clearly. But you don't get that because the standard method is, there'll be 7 questions on this topic. As soon as those 7 questions are explained in the class, you move on to the next. So in that case...
Very right. Yeah, in fact, that brings me to another important point related to this, is that we don't actually have a batch system. We don't put you in batches of randomly selected students and then everybody is moving at the same pace. What we do is we help you master concepts that you need to master to be able to qualify in an exam like this. It doesn't matter if you take 8 hours to probably master one topic in comparison to somebody who is taking only 2 hours, or you take 20 hours. It does not matter. You have to actually master these concepts, and you can attend as many classes for that concept where you are actually struggling till you master it. It's not a fixed batch system where it is moving at its own pace and then you are left out, and then you think that probably you are not going to have the best chance of qualifying in an exam because you are now losing out somewhere. So it will move at your pace. You will have to spend as much time as you need based on your learning style to be able to master each of those concepts that you actually need to master to be able to qualify in an exam like this. So of course, as you get closer to the exam, you need to spend more time and all, but as I said, you can spread it out in a way where you are focusing. It's not a fixed delivery, information delivery mechanism. It is based on mastery of subjects. You can keep studying the subject till you master it, and you can learn it at your own pace. And we help you do it through the tests that are specifically designed for you alone. Everybody will get a different set of tests then.
And I think that's very important because a lot of time, for example, a standard course for an MBA exam preparation is about 4 to 5 months, depending upon, number of classes, etc. But then a lot of that time is not spent on things that add value to you individually. Maybe you are very good in verbal ability section, and you don't need as many classes there. But you are paying for all of those classes. You're spending your time in all of those classes. You're solving those, you're solving those questions. You're submitting those.
Or you are probably skipping it after paying.
You're skipping it.
You're skipping it, yeah. But you have paid for it.
But you have already paid for it. So that's just a very inefficient and unproductive way of preparing. Because when you're preparing for an exam like this, as we already talked about, like every mark matters. And in those cases, it's best that you spread your resources in a very optimized way. Because obviously none of us have like infinite resources, and even like if you're working, how strapped for time you are, how little time you can spend to attend classes or solve questions. So it's best.
Resources both in terms of time and money.
Exactly, both of them. So I think that's why that's where we have a different course, and which is why our batch sizes are very small. We don't we don't believe in like 15 parallel batches of 100 students. That's not a way that's sustainable for our model. We have one-on-one personalized coaching with the mentors, me, Sanjeev sir, the other mentors that we have. So anytime it just doesn't stop with your exam preparation. For MBA, for a lot of people, there's also a mindset shift that needs to happen. Because at the end of the day, you still have an interview to go through, you still have a VAT section to go through. So all of those things, you need to have a certain presentability there. You need to have a certain section of interview skills that you must possess before you walk into that room. Plus, on top of it, there's also, the psychological aspects of it. If you're feeling demotivated or you feel like you're not performing at your best or your potential is not coming out. So, we have one-on-one personalized mentorship for those things. We have a course structure which allows you to focus on your weak areas and, get help in those areas. Whereas with the strengths, we are like, what, you're okay with this, you don't need help, you'll be fine on your own. We don't believe in charging you for things that don't add value to you. which is essentially what our entire vision behind the program is. We are trying to add
Yeah.
value to you in a way which is, which makes sense to you. Because until unless we are not making value for you, you're not going to, experiment with something, which is for where your future is at stake. So
Yeah, and also the underlying, the underlying objective or philosophy behind designing this kind of course is that if you come to us, the onus is on us to help you qualify. We are not going to be happy, if probably 3 out of 100 or 4 out of 100 students who come to us qualify. That is
Correct.
the industry norm. But why is it so low?
Right.
Is the question that has been bugging us. And how can we take it higher?
Right.
Can we have probably out of 100 students who come to us, can we have at least 75, 80 qualify? I understand that probably 10, 20 may still not qualify for whatever reason, for the competition, level of competition. But can we at least have more than 50% students qualify? Yes, of course we can, provided we can fine tune the whole effort or the method to suit what that particular student needs.
Correct. Which is why, our program is different from what I call the cookie cutter programs. That there's a program which was built maybe, 15, 20 years ago, and it's been updated every 3-4 years based upon the pattern, and it's delivered to everyone. In that case,
Correct.
the onus does not really, lie with the person delivering the program. It's your job then. So, you're sort of
Correct.
like a passive receiver of information, that the information has been given to you, you do what you want to do. That's not the way we want to
Absolutely.
go about it. We believe that, preparation and education is a collaborative effort. It needs to come across from both ways. I need to actively monitor the person and, understand where they need help and then provide that help, because that's the value that I bring to the table. What the value that you bring to the table is your time and your effort and your
Absolutely.
hard work.
Absolutely. No, Siddhant, one important point that I would like to make here is CAT or ZAT for that matter, when we appear, or some people who have appeared for any kind of competitive exam would know that you'll have questions that no matter how prepared you are, those questions would be questions that you are seeing for the first time in your life. Unlike normal, objective type exams where you would know that, okay, if there's a question on percentage, it will be like this, 25% zyada mark price hai and how much profit and all that. You will never come across a question in CAT or ZAT which you have already seen. That you can rest assured, right? So what you need to really do is you need to inculcate this habit of thinking different ways of solving a question. You can't really learn one way from one person because that could be his style of teaching you. What is your style? What is your style of learning it? How can you solve this question in the best manner in the shortest time? That would vary from individual to individual. That will vary from section to section for you, for problem to problem for you. So you have to inculcate this habit of thinking how to solve a problem. And of late, last 4-5 years, CAT is designed in a way, or ZAT is designed in a way where you don't really have to just do quant
There's no
or
algorithm
probably
that they
answer.
can follow. Like,
Correct.
usually there's
Like
an
even the
algorithm.
quant questions.
Correct.
Yeah, so I'm saying even the quant questions will actually require you to apply a lot of logic before you can start applying the formula and do the calculations.
Right.
So you need to really, while undergoing preparation, you really need to start thinking about various ways of answering a question, solving a problem, and we help you do that. Because there could be various ways in which a question can be answered. One way can probably suit one particular student, the other student probably may become more comfortable solving it the other way. So we try and see which way suits you better so that you can optimize your performance, and you also inculcate this habit of being able to think about a problem, because nobody is going to tell you ki this is the problem, you have to apply Venn diagram theory to this. You have to think what theory to apply. So you have to inculcate that habit, and it's a very important aspect of preparation.
Yeah, it is. And I'll build on that with an example. So for example, when I was preparing, so verbal was a section which was good for me. I was decent with the verbal ability section. So when I was preparing for that, I was talking to some other people that were also preparing. I was talking to them, and they had like a set algorithm that when you get the reading comprehension question, you go through it once very quickly, then you read it once slowly. Then you read the questions, then you mark the sentences, and you then come up from it. I tried that algorithm. It never worked for me. I think the one mock where I used it, I went down from like 95 to like a 73 or something.
I'm
Because
surprised at times.
Hmm.
When you go through any website which kind of advises you how to prepare, and they say read the passage carefully. I mean, it's not an advice. It is like you know that you are supposed to read it. So
Exactly.
there has to be much more practical. Yeah, please carry on. I just remember this because I have been just kind of, while making the content or the material, I've been just trying to understand how things are.
Yeah.
And then I found that most of it is so, kind of off the shelf, kind of
Exactly. And like exactly, it is off the
that
shelf.
does not add any value.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it literally is off the shelf because that's like a standard process that may
So you
work.
were talking, and then
Yeah, you're saying?
No, you were talking about that RC thing where you
Yeah,
tried that
yeah.
method and it didn't work for you. Then what? How did you?
So I had a very straightforward method. So I have been like, I used to read a lot even as a student. So my process was simple. I just read the whole thing, then solve the questions. I didn't like, do the back and forth thing where I read it like once very quickly, then once very slowly, then like underline words and all of that. Or a lot of questions they went that, start with the questions, then go back to the passage. My process was pretty simple. I used to read the whole thing and then answer the questions. So that was the way that worked for me. However, if I had just followed
that work for you specifically, yeah.
Exactly. If I had followed
Correct.
the method which was prescribed to me, I would have had very bad numbers. And B, I would have struggled with an area where I'm inherently strong with.
Yeah, correct. So not only it's helping you in the areas that you need help, it is on your score through a generic recommendation. It's probably bringing down your score in certain areas where you could have scored higher.
Exactly. So that's why I think this cooking and methodology doesn't help anyone.
So I think we're just coming back to that point, that it's very important that you think of the ways you can approach a problem, because you need to think a lot while solving any problem. It does not require very advanced level of knowledge of any subject, maths or English. You require very basic level of knowledge and things that you have already covered in probably class 10. But to be able to apply, suppose, the mathematical principles also, the formulas also, you'll first need to understand what the question is saying. So a lot of logic is to be applied to every question there in CAT. And we really want students who are trying to get into one of the top colleges to inculcate that habit. It of course will come with practice, but it also comes with a lot of self-awareness, as Siddhant was saying. And it will come with a preparation which is unique to you, which is designed for you to take you from here to here, which will eventually help you get into one of the top MBA colleges. Great. So Siddhant, we will probably continue this. We'll have one more session in a couple of days where we will get into specific sections like VARC and then Quant and then TILR. I would request students who need any kind of help or assistance in the preparation of CAT or XAT or any other MBA entrance exam to visit our website, which is eklavya.learning.com. You can get a free e-booklet which covers strategies to crack CAT. Some of them we have already discussed here, but it has few other strategies. It also has some myths that we want to bust about MBA preparation. If you need any more help in any other area, we would be more than happy to help you. A lot of this help can be given just like that, free of cost, because our objective is to try and help as many students qualify as possible. But if you need professional help, we are there. It is there. You can visit our website, eklavya.learning.com. You can visit our Facebook page, get in touch with us, and we will tell you how it works, that individual study plan, which can surely help you get into one of the top MBA colleges in India.
I think,
So anything else?
I think that pretty much says all of it. Go and check out the website. It has more details about the things that we have talked about, and the ebook as expounds upon some of the things that we glossed over. It talks about it in much more detail and talks about other strategies also. And I think when we meet the next step, then we talk about sectional strategies and how do you develop those mental models that you don't have to depend upon algorithms to solve a question, where you can develop your own algorithm in the middle of the question, in the middle of the exam to approach a question.
Yeah. Just one more thing. In fact, since you spoke about mental models, I just want to touch upon one thing here, which is very important. That you'll always go when you go to probably seek any professional help for preparing for any of these competitive exams. You'll be given, from the very beginning, they will probably give you some fundamental, and then they'll ask you to probably use time saving techniques, the shortcut tricks and all.
Correct.
I think that again will depend on the individual. There cannot be a uniform kind of thing.
Yeah.
For some of you, the time, the quick help tips or the time saving techniques can come later if your fundamentals are not that strong. For somebody, if the fundamentals are strong, it can come from the beginning only. There cannot be a uniform way where you try teach everybody the same thing.
I still
Time,
don't know that. I still don't know half of those tricks because I could never
yeah,
remember those formulas. Like the pipes and cisterns things. I just found it easier to solve it by the unitary method way
unitary method. Yes, yes,
because
yes.
instead of remembering like 7 formulas, I just found it easier to just go about it first principle.
Correct. So time, very important. It's important and speed is important, but accuracy is probably more important or as important, if not more.
Yeah.
You can't really try and attempt 90% questions and get 50% of them wrong.
Right.
It is better to attempt 70%, 75% questions and get 90% of them right.
Right.
So speed is important, but it has to be your speed, not the speed at which everybody else is running, and you don't really need to catch up with them.
Yeah.
Great. So,
Yeah.
Chalo, thank you, Siddhant,
Sure.
and thank you everybody for watching. I hope it has been of some help to you. Any additional help, please visit our Facebook page. Please visit our website. We'll be more than happy to offer help.
Exactly. And if you
Our
think this video would have
objective
helped other people,
is also
feel free to share it. Hello?
Yeah, if you can share it, it will help others also. And we would surely want to help you realize your dream of getting into one of the top MBA colleges in India. When we say top, we mean only top 20.
Right.
It is not worth your time and effort to get into MBA colleges, which is like they have some 4,000 colleges in India right now. You don't really need to aim for any of them. Aim for the top 10, 20 and you will make it. And we will love to help you get into one of those. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much for watching.
Yeah. All right. All the best.
Thank you. Bye.